learn early in this life that the worst monsters don't hide under your bed. They knock on your door when you're alone and tired. I'd been hauling freight up and down the Midwest for nearly 20 years, mostly solo. And if there's one thing trucking teaches you, it's how to read danger before it reads you. Still nothing could have prepared me for what happened that night outside Cheyenne, Wyoming. It was mid-December, the kind of winter where the cold feels angry, where the wind tears through you like a blade and the snow falls so hard it eats the road right out from under your tires. I'd been pushing hard, hauling a load of heavy machinery out of Denver, but the weather turned ugly fast. Black ice warnings were coming over the CB radio, and something in my gut, that old stubborn sixth sense, told me to shut it down early. I pulled into a remote rest stop just off I-25. No welcome center, no cameras, just a battered bathroom, building lit by flickering sodium lamps, their orange glow warping the swirling snow into shapes that looked almost alive. Only one other rig sat at the far end of the lot, engine cold, windows dark. Whoever they were already buttoned up for the night. I backed into a spot closest to the exit, pointed nose out. Old habit. After a quick walk around to check the tires and seals, I climbed back into the cab, fired up the heater, and cracked open a can of soup. The radio sputtered static and fragments of a country song I didn't recognize. Outside, the storm howled against the windows, and for a while it was almost peaceful. The kind of peace that only comes when the rest of the world feels completely dead. Until the knocking started. Not a polite tap. Not someone asking for help. It was desperate, wild. A frantic hammering that made the whole side of the cab shudder. I froze, spoon halfway to my mouth, heart slamming into my ribs so hard I could barely breathe. Another knock. Harder this time, fists slamming against the driver's door. I forced myself to move, peeling back a corner of the blackout curtain. What I saw made my blood turn to ice. A girl, maybe 16, soaking wet, hair plastered to her face by the snow, stood there, her fists bruising the metal of my truck. Her mouth was moving, but I couldn't hear anything over the storm. Cracked the window an inch, just enough to catch her voice. "Please," she sobbed, voice raw and ragged. "He's coming, he's right behind me." For a split second, instinct nearly won. The part of me that remembered my niece back home, remembered what it meant to see a kid in real terror. But something else, something colder, snapped into place. "Check your mirrors. Look closer." Flicked on the floodlights and scanned the parking lot through my side mirrors. Nothing but snow and shadows, no footprints approaching. No headlights cutting through the whiteout. The girl beat her palms against the door again, leaving wet smears on the glass. "Let me in, please," she screamed. But something was wrong. Horribly wrong. Her eyes, they weren't darting around, searching for an attacker. They were locked on me. Fixed. Like she wasn't running from something. She was waiting for something. The hair on the back of my neck stood up. My breath fogged the glass as I whispered, more to myself than to her. "Back up, let me see behind." "You." She just stood there, staring. The screaming stopped. Without another word, the girl turned, too calmly, too wrong, and walked away, swallowed almost immediately by the blizzard. I didn't move. I didn't dare. Something inside me, some ancient primal instinct, knew that if I opened that door, I wouldn't survive the night. And somewhere, out there in the snow, someone else was waiting. Watching. I sat there gripping the wheel, so hard my knuckles cracked, straining to see anything beyond the swirling wall of white. Nothing. Just the low whine of the wind clawing at the cab and the soft, eerie thump of snow piling against the tires. The heater rattled. The radio whispered static, but otherwise the world outside had gone silent. Too silent. I needed to move, to drive, to do something, but my body wouldn't listen. Fear pinned me to the seat like a weight. Finally, I forced myself to reach over and tap the quick record button on my dash cam. If something happened, at least someone might find the footage. Maybe they'd understand what went wrong. Maybe they'd know I hadn't imagined it. I turned on the side floodlights and the undercarriage spotlight, flooding the lot with harsh beams that carved deep black shadows into the snowdrifts. Still nothing. No cars, no figures, no tracks. Except faint smudge beneath the trailer, a shape too dark, too wrong, pressed low against the ice. I leaned forward, squinting. The storm distorted everything. But the longer I stared, the more certain I became. There was someone crawling under my rig, flat to the ground, moving slow, like a predator waiting for a chance to strike. My mouth went dry. I barely dared to breathe. The girl hadn't been running from anyone. She was the bait. And the thing hunting me, it was already here. I slammed the door lock down again, even though I knew it was already locked, my hands fumbling in terror. Somewhere deep in the shadows beneath the cab I could feel him. Waiting, patient, calculated. I grabbed the crowbar from behind the passenger seat and clutched it like a lifeline. Every instinct in my body screaming, "Do not open the door." Minutes, stretched into hours, or maybe it just felt that way. I kept the engine running, the cab lights off, and my eyes flicking between the mirrors every few seconds, afraid that if I blinked, something would move. At one point, a shadow, no bigger than a man, slithered across the rear floodlight beam, vanishing behind the trailer. I didn't sleep. I didn't dare. Instead, I sat there all night, heart hammering against my ribs, listening to the storm rattle the world around me, waiting for the next knock. The next sign that the thing outside hadn't given up. But it never came. It didn't need to, because it already knew it had scared me half to death, and that was enough, for now. By the time the first bruised light of morning seeped through the storm, I was shaking from more than just the cold. I waited until full daylight before daring to climb into the back of the cab, unlocking my small safe and pulling out my emergency flare gun, my last line of defense if things got worse. With my heart pounding in my ears, I reviewed the dash cam footage. At first, it showed exactly what I remembered, the girl stumbling, out of the blizzard, banging on the door, crying and pleading. But then, as she approached, something horrifying became clear. She wasn't running at all. Her pace was slow, almost deliberate. Her sobs didn't match her body language. And just before she reached the passenger side, the night vision camera caught it. A second figure, low and spider-like, slithering out from under the tree line and sliding across the ice, heading straight for my truck. The girl hadn't been alone. She was leading me into an ambush. I scrubbed back through the footage, frame by frame, nausea tightening my throat. There, a glint of something metallic near the crawler's hand. Maybe a crowbar. Maybe worse, and then nothing. The figure disappeared into the blind spot beneath the cab. I reported it the minute I hit the next way station. State troopers took it seriously. Said there had been other reports of similar setups that winter. Always remote rest stops. Always storms. Always a girl who seemed just helpless enough to make you drop your guard. They didn't catch anyone that night. They probably never would. Whoever was behind it knew how to vanish. No footprints, no license plates, no security footage. Just fear, left behind like fingerprints burned into your mind. After that night, I changed everything. I installed undercarriage motion sensors, upgraded my camera system, and made a rule. If I can't see it, I don't trust it. I don't sleep in dead-end lots anymore. I don't open my door for anyone without floodlights and a weapon in hand, because the monsters out here, they're real. They don't wear masks. They don't howl at the moon. They look like lost kids. They sound like desperate voices. And they knock. God help you if you ever open that door. I should have trusted my gut the moment that text came in. You drive long enough, you start to pick up on things, tiny signals that whisper wrong. A pause in a dispatcher's voice, a wait that doesn't match the manifest, a light that should have flickered red but didn't. I've been hauling freight up and down the East Coast for almost 15 years. I've seen some shit, but nothing has ever clawed under my skin like that Friday in November. And it started with one sentence. Urgent reroute. New drop location. Time-sensitive cargo. Confirm now. That was it. No call, no voice. No reason. Just coordinates pinged to my phone like it was nothing. I was about 40 minutes outside of Savannah, Georgia, running a clean load. Commercial electronics, sealed tight, nothing shady. The route was familiar. I'd done it before, maybe half a dozen times. Same dispatcher, same drop yard in Norcross. Everything was by the book, until it wasn't. When I pulled over at a truck stop off Highway 17 to double-check the message, something about it felt off. It looked official. The formatting, the signature line, even the tone. But there was something in the phrasing, avoid penalty, proceed immediately. It felt wrong, not illegal wrong, set up wrong. Still, part of me, maybe the tired part, wanted to believe it was real. I was 2 hours ahead of schedule. The address was just 20 miles off route. Maybe they needed to shift the drop to save time. Maybe I was being paranoid, so I told myself I'd just check it out. I wouldn't unload, I'd just look. That's all. Just to put the doubt to bed. God, I wish I'd listened to that doubt. The new address led me to an industrial backlot west of Pooler, tucked behind a strip of overgrown brush and broken asphalt. It wasn't even lit properly. Just one flickering security lamp casting long shadows across a corrugated metal building that looked more abandoned than operational. No logos. No shipping signs. Just a warehouse-shaped corpse. I kept the cab, idling, heart already thudding like a warning siren in my ears. Then they appeared. 2 men walking out from the darkness like they'd been watching me this whole time. One was tall, bald, sleeves rolled up despite the chill. The other wore a neon orange hoodie. No badge, no clipboard, no scanner. Just gloves, work boots, and confidence. Back it into Doc 2, the bald one said, grinning like I was the punchline to a joke he hadn't told yet. Every instinct I had was screaming. I didn't move. This the drop for Unit 19B, right? I asked, keeping my voice steady. The guy in the hoodie nodded. Yup, just bring it on back. We'll take care of the rest. His smile held too long. It wasn't friendly. It was performative. Like he was trying to play the part of someone harmless and failing. I didn't answer. I rolled the window up. Locked the cab and I called dispatch. That moment, that exact second, I realized just how close I was to stepping into something I'd never walk away from. My dispatcher picked up on the second ring. Hey, checking in real quick, I said. Did we reroute Unit 19B to a drop west of Pooler? There was a pause, long enough to make my stomach twist. No, she said slowly. You're still set for Norcross. Who told you otherwise? I could hear her typing frantically. I got a text, said it was urgent, time sensitive. It looked like it came from you. We never changed your route, she said. Then her voice dropped to a whisper. Get out of there. Now. I didn't hesitate. I dropped the call, threw the rig into reverse, and that's when I saw it. The guy in the forklift had been waiting. He gunned it toward my trailer like he was about to dock it anyway, even without confirmation. Like he was confident I'd follow. The script. The man in the orange hoodie started walking up to my cab. Calm, hands in pockets, no rush, no threat, just steady, watching me. And then, he smiled again, that same off smile. The one that says we've done this before. That's when I floored it. Tires screeched, gravel flying as the cab swerved hard left. I clipped a pallet stack, heard the crack of splintered wood. But I didn't stop. The trailer bucked behind me as I slammed through the narrow exit and tore back toward the main road. My hands were slick with sweat, my throat dry, my mind racing. But then something else happened. Something worse. A pickup truck pulled out onto the road behind me. No lights, no horn, just there. And it was following me. At first I told myself it was nothing, a coincidence, another late night, driver heading the same way. But I've been doing this job too long to believe in that kind of luck. Every time I sped up, he sped up. Every time I slowed, he coasted behind me. Same distance, same angle, like he was tethered to my bumper. Not once did he flash his lights. Not once did he try to pass. Just that steady presence in my mirrors, like a shadow made of steel and intent. I took the first exit I saw, a cracked, uneven ramp leading to a closed gas station and a flickering vending machine under a buzzing sodium light. I didn't even kill the engine, I just sat there watching. 2 heartbeats later, the pickup rolled past. Didn't turn, didn't stop, didn't even glance my way. It just kept going. But that was all I needed to confirm it. I'd been marked. Whether it was to hijack the load, follow me home, or something worse, I didn't want to find out. I stayed parked for a while, my hands still shaking, until the adrenaline faded just enough to dial 911. I kept the engine running, doors locked, one hand on the wheel and the other wrapped tight around the crowbar I keep under the seat. The dispatcher's voice was calm, professional. Too calm. I gave her everything. Location, description, what happened, dash cam footage. She said units were en route, told me to stay put, told me I did the right thing. But even after the sheriff arrived, I didn't feel safe. He was a young guy, probably not even 30. He watched the footage on my dash display, me pulling up to the warehouse, the men walking out of the shadows, the truck that tailed me. His face stayed flat, unreadable, too practiced, too used to this. When the video ended, he exhaled through his nose like he was trying not to say something that would make it worse. "That building," he said, adjusting his belt. "Vacant. Has been for months." "What?" I asked. My throat felt raw. Foreclosed last spring, was a logistics holding yard, but the company pulled out. Place is dead. No permits. No utilities. Then who the hell were they? I said, more to myself than to him. The officer just shook his head. "We see this kind of thing more than people realize. Hijack crews find empty facilities, spoof a drop message, dress the part, vests, radios, forklifts, and wait for someone to fall for it. You weren't the first." I asked if they'd caught anyone. "No, and they won't. By now those guys are halfway to Florida or dumped the truck in a river." He paused. "They didn't need guns, did they? Didn't even try to force you out?" I shook my head. He leaned in slightly. "Because they didn't have to. They counted on you believing it. That's what makes them dangerous." And he was, right? They didn't come at me screaming. Didn't ram my trailer or block the road. They just created the illusion of normal, slipped under my radar, and waited for me to step into the trap. They were counting on trust, on routine, on fatigue, and I was this close to falling for it. After the report was filed, the deputy told me I was free to go. He asked if I needed an escort, but I said no. I didn't want anyone near me. I didn't want to be followed again. Back on the road, every set of headlights made my skin crawl. Every car that lingered too long in my mirrors made my throat tighten. I kept checking my side mirrors every few seconds over and over, a habit that stayed with me long after that night. Because here's the thing they don't tell you in this job. Monsters don't always come with fangs or claws. Sometimes they wear work gloves and a smile. Sometimes they look like the kind of guy who'd ask if you brought donuts. Sometimes they don't need to chase you down. They just wait for you to get tired enough, confident enough, distracted enough. And the scariest part? They almost pulled it off. I didn't sleep that night. I parked in a well-lit love station just off I-95, nose out, security cameras overhead, other trucks nearby. Didn't matter. I sat in the cab with the doors locked, keys in hand, crowbar across my lap, just listening to every gust of wind, every distant footstep, every creak of the trailer. My eyes burned from checking the mirrors so often, but I couldn't stop. I kept replaying everything in my head, obsessively dissecting it, the way the fake dispatcher phrased the message, the timing of the men walking out, the pickup that followed, me. It was all too coordinated, too deliberate. They'd done this before, and that warehouse, that rotting shell of a building, it felt like it had been waiting for me. The next day, I changed everything. I upgraded my locks, industrial grade, triple hardened steel, bought an additional rear-facing dash cam and mounted motion sensors under the chassis. I installed a hidden kill switch under the dash, something only I can arm, and synced my rig's location to a private tracker my sister monitors now, just in case I vanish off-grid. And I made a promise to myself. Never again. I no longer respond to any message without a call. I don't care if it looks legit. I verify the number. I cross-check the location. I never follow anyone on foot, no matter what vest or earpiece they wear. And I don't park anywhere that doesn't have at least 2 exits, security cameras, and visible staff. But what truly changed was something deeper. Something psychological. Because since that night, I can't shake this feeling. Like I'm being watched. Not always. Not everywhere. Just in those liminal spaces. Abandoned lots, quiet exits, rest stops at 2 a.m. It's in the flicker of a halogen light that shouldn't be on. The outline of a figure that's maybe just a shadow. A cold voice in the back of my head that whispers, "They're still out there." And sometimes late at night when I'm driving a lonely stretch of highway, I imagine that same pickup pulling out behind me again. No headlights, no urgency. Just there. Following. Because the terrifying truth? They didn't need to kill me. They didn't even need to touch me. They changed me just by almost succeeding. That's what real horror is. Not blood, not ghosts, not monsters in closets. It's the knowledge that something evil can look you in the eye, smile and vanish into the dark, leaving you to rot in your own paranoia. So if you're listening to this and you're a driver, remember, evil doesn't knock anymore. It pings. It texts. It wears reflective gear, and it waits for you to blink. Stay sharp, stay suspicious. And if your gut tells you something's wrong, believe it. Because next time, they won't need to try twice. They say the devil doesn't need to chase you when he can make you stop on your own. And that night, somewhere deep in the back roads of Mississippi, I stopped. It was late July. The kind of suffocating southern night where the heat presses against your skin like a wet cloth and the trees loom too close to the road, their branches twitching in the heavy air. I was running a deadhead load, no trailer attached, just my cab slicing through the sticky darkness, headed east toward Jackson after a delivery near Natchez. I'd been on the road for 13 hours, eyes burning, mind slipping into that dangerous, exhausted autopilot when I saw it. At first, it barely registered. Just a dark lump in the ditch along the empty stretch of County Route 32. Could have been anything. Trash, a dead deer, some old farm equipment abandoned by the roadside. But something about it pulled at me. Something wrong as I drew closer, the shape clarified in my headlights. It was a woman. Or at least, it looked like one. She was curled tight against the ground, knees hugged to her chest, long dark hair plastered to her face. She wasn't moving. Just sitting there, trembling. The sight punched straight through my exhaustion and straight into that deep, gnawing part of my brain reserved for emergencies. Instinct, guilt, fear. They all lit up at once. Without thinking, I slowed, hazard lights flashing against the darkened trees. I leaned across the cab and cracked the passenger window. "Hey," I called out, voice rough from hours of silence. "You okay?" No answer. She didn't even lift her head. Something inside me whispered, "Don't get out." Something deeper, something even older, whispered, "She's not alone." But I fought. What if she was hurt? What if she needed help? I shoved the gear into park, grabbed my phone, and slid down from the cab. The moment my boots touched the ground, the weight of the night hit me full force. It smelled wrong, like wet dirt and copper and something else. Something rotten just out of sight. I kept my distance, heart pounding, one hand curled tightly around the handle of my pocket knife. The grass was slick with recent rain, thick enough to suck at my boots as I moved cautiously toward her. 20 feet. 15. The woman didn't stir, and then, under the thin beam of my flashlight, I saw it. Her hair wasn't moving in the breeze. Her skin was too pale. Too waxy. My stomach twisted violently. It wasn't a woman. It was a mannequin, a perfectly positioned, perfectly posed trap. Before I could even scream, a sharp crack shattered the air behind me, the sound of a branch snapping under heavy boots. I spun around, the world tilting, adrenaline crashing through my veins. A figure burst from the tree line. A man, big, fast, face smeared with mud and rage, hoodie drawn low over his eyes, sprinting straight for me, and in his hand, glinting under the sickly moonlight, was a crowbar. Time didn't slow down like they say it does in moments of terror. It shattered, cracked wide open into jagged, broken pieces. I didn't think. I moved. Instinct tore through the paralysis as I turned and sprinted back toward the truck, my boots sliding and skidding in the wet grass. The man's breathing was loud, too loud, panting like a wild animal right behind me. Every step I took, I swore I could feel his fingertips grazing the back of my jacket, reaching, clawing. The cab loomed ahead in the darkness, my only salvation. But it looked so far away, so impossibly small against the choking black of the trees. I hit the running board hard, my knee slamming into metal, but I barely felt it through the surge of pure animal panic. Fingers scraped the side mirror as he lunged, so close, so inhumanly close. But I yanked myself up into the driver's seat and slammed the door shut just as he threw his full weight against it. The entire cab shuddered from the impact. The window vibrated, his hand pressed flat against it, fingers splayed wide, eyes locked onto mine. Bloodshot, crazed, grinning. He pounded on the glass once, twice, the sound reverberating through the steel like hammer blows. And then, without warning, he vanished. No retreat, no hesitation, just gone, swallowed back into the woods as if he had never been there at all. For a moment, all I could do was sit there, hyperventilating, feeling the blood roar in my ears. The cab smelled of fear, sharp, acrid sweat and cold metal. I jammed the truck into gear and tore out of there, tires screaming against the soaked asphalt, the trailerless rig fishtailing wildly as I hit the highway. The rearview mirror showed only empty road behind me, no headlights, no shapes, just darkness pressing in from every side. But the fear clung to me, thick and smothering. I knew he wasn't alone. And I knew I wasn't as far away as I needed to be. Because, in places like that, monsters don't need to chase you. They wait. And if you stop even for a second, they find you. I didn't stop driving for almost 30 miles. I kept the engine roaring higher than necessary, hands locked in a death grip on the wheel, eyes flicking to every mirror, every shadow, every glint of movement on the side of the road. When I finally pulled into a grimy gas station on the edge of a dying town, my legs were trembling so badly I could barely work the clutch. The place was nearly deserted. A single pump, buzzing under a cracked neon sign, and an old man behind the glass who didn't even look up as I stumbled inside. I locked myself in the cab and called 911. When the deputy arrived, a tired-looking man in a stained uniform with deep lines around his mouth. I showed him everything. The footage from my dash cam, the location, the mannequin. His face tightened, and he scratched the back of his neck like he already knew what he was about to say. "This isn't the first time," he muttered. "Couple months back we had a report. Another trucker saw the same thing. Mannequin in the ditch. Didn't stop though, just kept moving. Smart one, that." He paused, then added grimly, "Few weeks later, another guy wasn't so lucky. His rig was found abandoned a few miles into the woods. Door swinging open. No driver. Inside. No sign of him since." I stared at him, my blood turning colder than the rain still dripping from my side mirror. The mannequin wasn't just bait. It was a pattern. A trap used over and over, waiting for someone too tired, too kind, or too naive to sense it. They had done it before. They would do it again. And somewhere out there, hidden in the forgotten back roads, crouching behind the trees and the ruins of 1,000 empty fields, they were still waiting. No faces, no names, just shadows. Watching, luring, hunting. And the worst part? You'll never know you're the prey. Until you step too close. Some lessons on the road don't come with warnings. They just hit you fast and hard. And if you're lucky, you survive them. It was supposed to be a simple drop. An easy offload at a regional freight yard outside Bakersfield, California. Middle of the night, middle of nowhere. Exactly the kind of place where bad things grow in the cracks between streetlights. I rolled in just after 2 a.m., my headlights slicing through the dense fog that clung to the industrial park like rotted cotton. The freight lot looked deserted, the kind of dead emptiness that made your skin itch. No security guard in the kiosk. No idling trucks, just silence and a scattering of broken sodium lights buzzing in the mist. But there, at the entrance, stood a man. He wore a reflective safety vest, waving a flashlight in slow, deliberate arcs, motioning me forward. From a distance, he looked official enough. Clipboard, earpiece. That blank, easy smile you see from warehouse workers who stopped caring years ago. I should have listened to the voice in my gut, the one that had been with me since I first learned to scan every parking lot twice to trust nothing at face value. But exhaustion blunts instinct, and that night I was running on fumes. He flagged me down, casual as you please, and leaned in through the open window, shouting over the idle of my engine. "Lots full up front," he said, voice easy, almost friendly. "Swing around the back. We're parking overflow along the fence line, spot 22. You're good." I nodded without thinking. The back lot was a maze of rusted containers and skeletal warehouses, barely touched by the dying lights. I shifted into gear and rolled forward, the man stepping aside, still smiling, still waving me on. Something about that smile gnawed at the back of my mind. It stayed too long, too wide, like he already knew what was waiting for me. I crawled the rig through the skeletal alleys of the freight yard, my headlights struggling to punch through the greasy fog. Rows of empty trailers and abandoned pallets loomed on either side like gravestones, throwing long, broken shadows across the cracked asphalt. I found spot 22, or what I thought was 22, and eased the truck into position. The second I threw it into park, I noticed something that made my stomach knot tight. There were no other trucks back here, no overflow lot, no drivers smoking outside their cabs, no forklifts humming in the background. Just silence thick enough to choke on. I killed the engine but kept the doors locked, scanning the mirrors. Nothing. Only the whisper of the fog curling between the trailers like searching fingers. I grabbed my clipboard, ready to run the paperwork in quick and get the hell out of there. That's when I saw him again. The man in the reflective vest. But now he wasn't alone. Another figure, darker, heavier, wearing a hoodie pulled low, slipped out from between two stacks of pallets near the rear of my trailer. At first, my brain refused to process it. It didn't fit. It didn't make sense. Then, movement. A flash of metal, and the hooded figure ducked low, fumbling with the latch on the trailer's rear door. Panic ripped through me like an electric shock. They weren't directing traffic, they were robbing me. Maybe worse. I dropped the clipboard and lunged for the driver's door, hands fumbling against the lock. Out of the corner of my eye, another figure stepped into view. This one moving slow, casual, blocking the narrow exit back to the main yard. It hit me all at once. This was planned, rehearsed. They knew the lot. They knew the patterns. They knew me. I didn't wait to find out how far they were willing to take it. I slammed the truck into reverse, tires shrieking against the cracked concrete, the cab shaking violently as I backed out hard, the trailer skimming dangerously close to the rows of stacked pallets. In the mirror, the man at the rear yanked his hands back, stumbling away from the truck. The man at the exit didn't even flinch, just watched me with that same cold, hollow stare. I didn't stop reversing until I was almost jackknifed against the edge of the lot. The figures melted back into the fog, quick and silent, vanishing between the warehouses like they'd never been there at all. I jammed the truck into drive, floored it, and tore out of the freight yard, the wheels screaming against the pavement. In the mirror, the entrance to the lot disappeared into the mist, empty, silent, as if it had swallowed everything whole. I didn't breathe until I was back under the highway lights, surrounded by the hum of civilization again. When I finally pulled into a gas station and called dispatch, my hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone. The dispatcher answered on the second ring, voice tight with exhaustion. I told him everything. The man in the vest, the fake directions, the figures trying to crack open my trailer like a can of beans. Silence on the other end of the line. "You're not the first," he finally muttered. "Had another driver vanish out of Bakersfield last month. Same setup. Reflective vest. Fake drop point. Never heard from him again." I sat there in the cab, staring blankly out at the neon buzzing overhead, a sick feeling twisting through my gut. Later, the sheriff's office reviewed my dashcam footage. They found nothing usable, no clear faces, no license plates, just flickers of movement in the fog and the hollow gleam of reflective tape disappearing into the dark. The lot had no working cameras. The company records were a mess, and the men, if they were even local, were long gone. There was no investigation, no arrests, just a file, another report gathering dust somewhere, and a warning whispered down the line between drivers like a ghost story. If a stranger waves you into the dark, don't follow. Because out here under the broken lights and endless black highways, the monsters don't come with claws and teeth. They come smiling. They come prepared. And they come knowing you're too tired to tell the difference, until it's too late. If you made it this far, you're braver than most. If these stories chilled you even a little, go ahead and hit that like button. It really helps me bring you more horror, more darkness, and more truth. Share this video with someone who thinks they're not afraid of the dark, and if you haven't already, subscribe. Join us. There's always another story waiting, and right now, the one playing on your screen might just be the scariest of them all. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next nightmare.